Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live this evening. The world is on edge here on a Shabbat evening, Friday evening here, August 31st, 2018. I think we're on August 31st there. I sure hope I've got my dates right here. Yes, August 31st it is. Putin is reacting to the death of the Prime Minister Zakhar Zinko in Donetsk, the self-proclaimed Republic of Eastern Ukraine there, the breakaway pro-Russian part that has broke away there, very similar to that of Crimea, and Russia has, of course, recognized their autonomy in the region, but it has not been recognized by the rest of the world. But nonetheless, this latest attack, which was a bomb planted in a restaurant where the PM was meeting there in the Donetsk region there, that killed him, another man, and injured 9, has really sent Russia in a tizzy. President Putin reacting to that. And this here is what he does say. The word Ukraine, the wicked murder of Alexander Zakharmenko is yet another proof that those who have chosen the path of terror, violence, and intimidation do not want to seek a peaceful political solution to the conflict and lead a real dialogue with inhabitants of the southeast. This is something that President Putin said. It goes on to say the word Ukraine does not fall into the text of the condolences telegram as the southeast Ukraine and Russia. The Ukrainian Donetsk and Luhansk circuits are defined where pro-Russian separatists proclaim the so-called People's Republic. It's also the Russian government says they will be watching closely as Ukrainian military has been making advances in light of the death of Alexander at this particular point right now. Another thing that I was watching as well is that on aircraft spots, Russia also, their Tu-214 reconnaissance plane there is currently operating east of the Kerch Strait there. And if you'll notice there on the map right here, they are circling very close there to the bridge that links the mainland of Russia to that of Crimea, that famous bridge that the Russians just built, because after all, this is one thing that they have said that they would definitely like to take out is Russia's pride, the bridge that they built there to link the two nations together. So Russia's watching that very closely. TASS also reporting on the Donetsk intelligence notes regrouping of the Ukrainian forces, officials, how that they're getting ready. They believe that they're about getting ready to launch a major offensive against the Donetsk People's Republic there on the eastern part of Ukraine. Now, while all this is going on, we have a lot of other issues that are happening as well. And in particular, went too far. I thought I actually had everything already up and everything. But we have a lot of issues that are going on right now in Idlib, a lot of threats that are happening there. The United States threatening that Russia is now joining in with the situation in Idlib there. Let me just kind of see if we can back up, regroup this again here, because I know Mike Pompeo has weighed in on this issue as well in Syria. And they are warning Russia not to assist Syria in this liberation of Idlib. In fact, the West is making it look like Idlib is some beautiful paradise right now for the Syrian people. But in reality, Idlib has become the largest hornet's nest in all of Syria to begin with there. So it's just a really bad situation. And there's all kinds of news coming out about the threat of this war escalating and spreading much larger than what it actually is. This one here says, facing Syria and Russia, UN prepares to prove the impotence of its, in the final analysis, hard power matters, soft power matters only to those who care for it matter, according to the Washington Examiner. But here we go, right here. Mike Pompeo, U.S. accuses Moscow of defending Syria's Idlib offensive because Russia has begun to actually help the Syrian government in this offensive, in air assaults there on the Idlib province. But you know, it just really gets me because I keep thinking to myself, if we in America, if our country had been invaded by terrorists and we were fighting to regain the land, we wouldn't dare leave one state left out. even if it was as small as New Hampshire or something like that, we would fight to liberate every last bit. Would we just allow all the terrorists to go there and do nothing about it? Just allow that part of our country just to disappear as a new safe haven for terrorists? Of course not. Here, Reuters says U.S. sees assault on Idlib as escalation of Syrian conflict. Pompeo, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Friday said the United States views the Syrian government military assault on rebel-held Idlib as an escalation in the conflict. I mean, that's just absolutely absurd. As the State Department warned that Washington would respond to any chemical attack by Damascus. They're not going to do a chemical attack. But you know, the funny thing is, the Western allies will stage a chemical attack and blame it on Assad. You know, I was listening to the State Department in an old video from 2017 talking about how that when RT's reporter was questioning, grilling the issue about what if Al-Qaeda or al-Nusra staged a chemical attack. This was on an earlier event there. Isn't it all possible? But the U.S. State Department defiant in saying there's no argument. The evidence already exists that Assad has gassed his own people. No, that's totally to the contrary. The evidence is to the contrary. So there is an argument. And as long as there is an argument, there should be a debate about what really did happen. Why is Aaron Erdem's report and the information he had by the Turkish government, where they arrested the very people with sarin gas, never brought to light? It's troubling indeed, if you ask me. Very troubling. At any rate, tomorrow, by the way, guys, we will be putting together tomorrow evening the broadcast, our Shabbat Live. We will not be doing it this evening. Those of you that want to go over, though, to our broadcast there on Patreon, patreon.com/Israeli News Live, I did load an in-depth message about the abortion law in Israel. And of course, standing with Israel. How do we stand with Israel? So I put it in the article there, or in the broadcast we did on Patreon. We should stand with Israel fully with our hearts and everything, but with wisdom. Using wisdom. Because after all, we're forgetting what the prophets said about our people, what Yeshua himself, Jesus, said about Israel, and even the apostles that knew that Israel, until she receives her Messiah, would be blind. And the very fact that the Israeli secular government that continues to make laws that are contrary to the Word of God is evident that the secular government of Israel is not fully complicit with the Word of God. And so I actually examined the abortion law that Israel actually has. They considered illegal abortion in Israel, and of course I saw many misunderstood my statements or my stance on abortion. I am very much pro-life. The only thing that I did mention, though, is that I would have compassion and understanding in the case of whether or not a woman would lose her life, or in the case of she had been brutally assaulted and as a result was pregnant of that heinous crime, how that would affect her emotionally, mentally. Many women, after these types of assault, commit suicide as a result. Of course, I know there has been women that have carried these children, that the children become wonderful children in life, even believing that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So I know there's good sides to it as well. My only point was, as I said, I understood what they go through, or I try to have compassion on these issues. I'm very much pro-life, and I will always make that stance as well. But my issues are, even in one person in their comments saying that you know nothing about the Torah. Well, maybe you should listen to Patreon. Because in the very article itself, they call, of course, out-of-wedlock child a bastard child. But it does differ depending on which Orthodox group you follow or listen or take that advice from. Normally, a bastard child is considered a bastard child in a out-of-wedlock marriage by Christianity. That's generally where you see that, and maybe that's where the influence is coming from, and the law that was passed in Israel. But as a general rule, most rabbis believe that it's an adulterous affair. But oddly enough, if the man commits adultery, if you look at the Chabad organization, if the man commits an adultery and he's married and has a child, that child is not considered a mamzer. A mamzer is what they call a bastard child. Isn't it kind of a odd, discriminatory type of view? It's only if the woman does it. I do go very much into detail about this because I have a feeling that both sides have overlooked what mamzer really represents. What really is a bastard child? I think it has more to do with the Nephilim. And I make a very powerful case for that on patreon.com/Israeli News Live. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live here on YouTube. God bless you. Tomorrow we'll pick up the fight for women and women's in their place in the Bible on a different aspect. Going to be sharing that with you here. I just got too much in depth on this issue for Patreon, so I kind of lost time on being able to put together the other message. But we will still do it on Shabbat. Tomorrow, sometime, hopefully right around 6 p.m. Eastern Time before Shabbat has finished. Erev Tov.